Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Business Morning on Sunrise Daily. We do business for just about 30 minutes before we head back to the Sunrise Daily studio. We start from the global space. Oil prices rose on Friday, extending a rally sparked by output disruptions in the United States Gulf of Mexico, where Hurricane Francine forced producers to evacuate platforms before it hit the coast of Louisiana. Take a look at the numbers now. Brent went up, gained 32 cents, and that's about 0.44% to $72.29. That's for Brent. For WTI, it was a gain of just about 30 cents, also 0.49% is it in percentage, $69.31 a barrel. And yes, Hurricane Francine is a major disruption right there for supply, increasing the price there. But if those gains hold, both benchmarks will break streak of weekly declines despite a rough start that saw Brent dip below $70 this week. Yes, Brent did go below that. That happened for the very first time since late 2021. At current levels, Brent is set for a weekly increase of about 1.7%, while WTI is set to gain 2% this week, and it's all because of Hurricane Francine. Now we look at our currency here in Nigeria. We saw appreciation on NAFEX, depreciation in NAFEM, a worrying trend, saying that there was no intervention by the central bank yesterday, and so I guess that is why the effect of the intervention the previous day has waned off. So we see a drop of 5.84%. That's a huge drop right there for the naira on NAFEM. So while it opened at 1,558 naira 75 kobo, it dropped to 1,649 naira 76 kobo, and that means that a whole 91 naira 1 kobo was off the value of the naira at the close of trade yesterday. And so, well, perhaps there'll be an intervention. Remember, last week, Friday, there was an intervention by the CBN, but it was for the BDC. So we'll see what happens before close of work today. Perhaps we would see a recovery a bit after intervention. After all, we do have $900 million now from the first dollar bond, giving the CBN, well, the reserve or the resources to intervene. But NAFEX, we saw that it was an appreciation of about 3.20%. But I mean, I always like to say that this is what reflects the reality on the naira. So you want to keep your eyes on the numbers on NAFEM right there. Now, the African Development Bank, the AfDB, has launched a $2 billion 5-year social benchmark bond set to mature September 18, 2029, marking its 60th anniversary. The bond, priced at 99.664% with a 3.5% coupon, is the AfDB's second USD global benchmark for this year, 2024. The bond drew over $3.7 billion in orders from 66 investors, including $150 million from joint lead managers. This reflects strong confidence in AfDB's AAA credit and sustainable bond framework. This was announced September 9, 2024, and priced the next day. The bond has seen rapid investor interest exceeding $2.5 billion so far, demonstrating robust support from AfDB's high-quality investor base. So we do know that AfDB intervenes a lot in the African economy, and major projects going on both by federal government and institutional investors. So this is one source of fund for the AfDB. Now, the Vice President of Nigeria, Mr. Kashim Shettima, has reaffirmed President Bola Tinubu's administration's commitment to transform Nigeria's digital economy. He emphasized that the initiative is well supported with necessary partnerships and resources. Vice President Shettima shared this commitment during a courtesy visit from the Odua Investment Company Limited's management, led by the chairman, Mr. Bimbo Ashiru, at the Presidential Villa in Abuja. Mr. Ashiru praised President Tinubu for improving their business environment in the country and is encouraging citizens and investors to leverage the country's opportunities for business.
there are a lot of opportunities in this country. I remember vividly when President Clinton came to Nigeria, said Nigerians have no business going around the world looking for money, that your resources here. And it was starting, we're a country that is endowed with a lot of natural, mineral and natural resources. With the caliber of person like the Vice President, who was in the private sector, who served as a former governor, he understands the terrain. He knows that our investors are our greatest assets, and that is what. And if you listen to him today, he feels that we have no business going around like what President Clinton said. Nigerians anywhere in the world, we are so important. People want to see Nigerians, and people that are making waves all over, they are Nigerians. Remember, Nigerians are members of the parliament, and we have made things easy. And I could see that one of the priorities of this present government, is for business to thrive in Nigeria, and they are making things easy.
All right, now the story of the day, the sad incident, which is still ongoing in Maiduguri, or Borno State generally, not just the capital, Maiduguri. But we've seen the level of flood. Well, I don't know if to call it flood, because we do know that this is coming from the dam. So it's not just about the rains right there. You see the picture, and if you have been watching channels since morning, you would have seen our correspondent, Ayola Kasim, is there and is bringing us updates. She's gone to the camp. There you have it. Lives lost. Some very touchy stories we've heard. For instance, a woman who had labor in the midst of this. You can only imagine what has happened. Ayola spoke to a man who hasn't seen his family, 5 children and his wife, since all of this started. Very touchy story right there. And yesterday, Channels Television had that interview with the Minister of Health. Obviously, this is a health disaster in the waiting if it's not handled and nipped in the bud. Well, the minister has shared some of the plans that they have to try to send help, medicine, and other types of aid that will be needed right there. But you can imagine that part of what has been submerged are farmlands, are business enterprises, business premises that have been submerged. Let's talk about the farm, because we have to eat first, isn't it? Food security is a major one. So let's talk to a farmer who is there now and has had the first-hand experience of all of this. Garba Ndifu, he's a farmer, but the chief executive officer of Mumana Agro Venture. Garba, good morning.
Now, and has had the first-hand experience.
Garba, can you hear me?
He's a farmer, but the chief executive officer of Mumana Agro Venture. Garba, good morning.
Good morning. Good to have you.
Can you hear me, Garba?
Garba, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Good morning.
Okay, please do put off your television. I can hear myself from your television. Could you tune down or mute your TV?
Can you hear me, Garba?
Yes, I can hear you. Good morning.
Can you put off the volume of your television, please?
Myself from your television. Could you tune down?
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right, great. So share with us your experience. You're a farmer in Maiduguri, Borno State generally. I know you operate there. Tell us what's happening around you. Tell us what you've been experiencing since this thing started.
Hello, good morning.
Garba, please go ahead.
Yeah, we've been experiencing a lot here and a lot of damages as a result of the flood. This is something that actually affected almost all our farmlands around the flood axis. It's totally swept off everything, and we really lost a lot. Most of us lost our farms around the axis. So it's something that it actually heart-touching. If you see how, now this is the main town of Maiduguri, as you can see, then imagine what happened around the farmland areas. From the dam to Maiduguri MMC is 10 kilometers away. And these 10 kilometers, people have been trying to adjust to suit into the situation of the insurgent trying to do what they can do in order to put food on their table. And then, unfortunately, this occurred, which actually swept up everything around the axis.
So, Garba, paint the picture for us. Where are you? Is this close to your house? Are there some homes, perhaps, that have been able to still stay afloat in the midst of all of this?
Sorry?
I would like for you to paint the picture for us, starting with where you are at this moment. Are you in your house? Is your house in an area that has been able to escape this? Do you have people like that in such areas? What areas are those?
Yeah. I'm out of audio. I can't hear you.
Hello, Garba, can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can hear you.
So I'm asking, where are you now? Is it in an area that is off the flooded area? Do you have people, other people who are staying around you who have been able to escape this flood?
Yeah, I am living in an area where the flood has not affected it.
What's the name of the area? Who are the other people there?
I am living in Fori layouts, just few meters away from Royal Clinic, which the flood has not actually affected the area I am living there. But I have a lot of friends that the flood has actually affected the area that they are in. It's actually swept their houses, their farmlands, and a lot of belongings.
Okay, so you are a farmer, and as you have said, some farmlands have been affected by this. What are some of those crops, that you think will be affected, which means this is going to affect harvest, for the next season?
Yeah, it's going to actually affect harvest of the next season, because most people around there, we do farm cowpea, that's beans, groundnuts, sorghum, millet, and sesame seed. These are some of the things we farm around that location. So with this flood, and actually harvest is almost at the peak, and with this flood challenge, it's actually affected everything around there. Now I can bet you every farm around that particular axis, it's been affected 90% as a result of the flood. Some is being affected 100% completely. So this is actually going to affect the harvest of this season along that particular axis.
So if there was to be help, immediate help, that you see that's needed, what would it be, or what would it look like?
Actually, there is a need for immediate help around that particular axis. Now that the flood has actually swept up everything, if there is any help that any organization or government needs to do now, is to actually give immediate help for the affected victim now, then against the harvest now, I think the government needs to encourage into irrigation farming now, because almost everything has been lost. And you can imagine most farmers there, we only operate on extensive. We only do our inputs, then harvest at the end of the day. Most of the farmers there. Now, with the intervention of the government or any organization to actually encourage farmers now to go into irrigation, because if you go through the history of Alo Dam, is actually constructed because of irrigation purposes. So if after this flood, if the government and any organization or individual will encourage to go into irrigation farming, then I think it's going to augment the effect of this flood in respect to our harvest and produce.
So when you say you think the government should encourage irrigation farming now, how do you think that can be started? And what parts of the state do you think it can best be used?
Now the insurgents has actually dropped. So along this Alo Dam and Medjugorje, the government can actually utilize that particular area for the irrigation farming. Then if you go through Medjugorje, if you look at the map, there are some channels of the water moving around. Now, if the government will actually use the water bank when the water has actually dropped, then utilize that particular area for irrigation farming, then it's actually going to be good and it's going to help a lot, because farmers now cannot move down the farmland that's hard to reach areas because of the insurgents around those axes. But if the government is going to utilize those areas, then it's actually going to do well. Then another thing is the government should also provide, should help in providing improved varieties of seed to go into the irrigation farming around Medjugorje axis.
All right, what crops, Garba, do you think could be focused on in this irrigation?
Yeah, the farmers can go into leguminous plants, which is going to be less intensive in work. Then it's going to give a positive yield for the farmers, and they are going to use it to augment their livelihood, because these leguminous plants, most of them are cash crops. It can be sold out. Leguminous plants such as onions, spinach, and carrots, all these fruits, it can also be planted around Medjugorje axis. Then you don't need a very large piece of land to go into, but you can actually harvest reasonably okay in order to sustain the livelihood of an individual.
All right, Garba, thank you so much for giving us that update, and so sorry for all of these losses. We would push the conversation of, making the most of what's available now. Chief Executive Officer of Mumana Agro Venture, thank you, and we wish you the best.
Thank you.
Now let's give you a summary of the picture of what's going on right there in Borno State. Not just farmers, other businesses have been affected. Even non-business individuals have been affected. That's captured in this next report.
The Maiduguri flood situation started last week Thursday when houses along the riverine areas experienced excess water flow into their homes. By Monday this week, most areas along the waterways and flood-prone areas were already flooded. By Tuesday morning, houses, markets, shops and public infrastructure were already submerged. Hundreds of thousands of residents escaped the flood with little or no belongings. While some slept on the streets, others relocated to relatives living in safer locations. The state government directed all affected victims to take shelter in camps and schools while the floods receded. Some of the survivors who made it to the camps recount their experience.
We were home when they called to inform us that flood has submerged Budum. I have relatives there. While on my way there, I was called back that my area has been flooded too.
Search and rescue operations commenced on Wednesday as the flood continued to recede. By Thursday, September the 12th, the waters had receded in most locations, while some parts of the cities were still combating the floods. As regards economic activities, some shop owners recount their experience after the floods.
It was around 2 a.m. that we got the information, according to the sources of the people that told us that a flood has started coming to take over our area.
At least more than 500 shops are affected. And you know that some shops are there with 2 people, 3 people inside the same shop. So if you calculate more than 500 shops by human beings, you will find out that people will be more than 1,000 people.
I
make more profits. This is because those that were trapped by the flood, when they are rescued, will pay us higher fares to take them to safer places.
To provide for their families, survivors continue with their trade in the camps. Owing to the blockage of the major connecting roads across the state capital, the Biu-Damboa Road has experienced increased vehicular movement, causing traffic jams as some of the camps, perishable markets, and other businesses have shifted to that axis of the city.
A whole lot happening in that state right there, and well, people still have to find a way to survive. So we saw businesses springing up even among the camps or within the camps right there, because people still have to eat and live, right? We'll give you updates on that. You don't want to miss Business Incorporated. We'll give you some other angles to that story going on in Maiduguri, Borno State. That'll be at 1 p.m. Business Incorporated. But now let's give you a bit of the closing numbers from the market. Yesterday, we saw a rebound in the NGX at the close of trade. We saw that the NGX, the all-share index, recovered and hit back the 97,000 in there, and it gained 178 billion naira. So we see it at 97,025.17, went up 0.32%. Equities cap still around 55 trillion naira, 55.753 trillion naira. We'll give you more numbers. Let's take a break, a commercial break, and then we'll come back. Yeah, so just before the break, we're giving you the numbers, closing numbers from yesterday. So we saw a positive move at the NGX. It closed in the positive 0.32%, and we're back to the 97,000 level right there. Let's look at the activity chart. Mostly red, though. It's just deals that escaped that and went up 0.73%, less than 1%. But I mean, we still had a positive market at the close of trade. We see top trades, Access, FBN, and UBA. So once again, the financial services sector topping the list right there. And of course, the banking counter ended in the green, 1.52%. There you have it. UBA, Zenith Bank, and I think Access, they drove that. Consumer goods is also closed in the positive at the close of trade. Dangote Sugar, I think the sentiment changed around it. Instead of profit taking, we saw a bit of cherry picking. The industrial goods almost unchanged, but a little bit of green, so a little bit of positive sentiments around it. Insurance is still in the red. Closing the red yesterday, 0.41%. Oil and gas has been thriving, so we do expect that investors will want to take some profit out of it. So that's why you see oil and gas down 0.63%. Oando, darling, in that counter, of course, has to also give away some profits. Now let's look at the unlisted market, the NEST, and see how that did. We saw the previous day it was a positive sentiment for that market, but at the close of trade yesterday, it was negative 0.05%, and it's at 2,221.31. Market cap more than 3 trillion naira. I do remember not very long ago when the market cap here used to struggle with 1 trillion naira. So let's celebrate our wins, and not just sweep it under the carpet and only talk about the negatives. Activity charts there was more of green. Volume was in the green, up about 51%. Value dropped 65.5%. Deals unchanged, but stocks traded went up about 11%. So 10 stocks were traded at the close of first day's trade. Been a while since we did the fixed income market on Business Morning, so let's do a bit of that this morning. At the FGM bonds yesterday, we had 48 deals worth 39.7 billion. And looking at the securities right there, at least now the domestic dollar domestic bond is finished, so we can do our normal market. 14 deals is what we saw on the June 2038, followed by May 2033. A bit of, I think, the mid securities got a lot of attention yesterday from the federal government bonds at the close of trade. The NTB, the Treasury bills, had 114. This is secondary market, really active yesterday on the Treasury bills. So we saw 73 deals on the September 2025. That's just less than a year left to mature, as well as the September 2025 also fourth. So you see 13 and 73. So the shorter securities got a lot of attention at the NTB yesterday. The ones that's December this year as well as next year. So mostly the most active securities were the short-term securities that are maturing later September 2025. 114. That's a huge activity that we had there at the NTB. Almost of the central bank, only 6 deals is what were recorded at the market yesterday. The August 2025 and May 2025 had that. So 4 of the August 2025 and 2 of May, and the deals were just 6 worth 6 billion naira. So that's how the market did. Fixed income market missed that for a bit. I guess we'll be trying and do more of that these days. Now let's head back to the Sunrise Daily Studio. But do remember to come back here to the business studio at 1 p.m. for Business Incorporated. I'll be here with Anita Edet, and want to give you updates also from what's going on in Borno State, the flood there, as well as other stories. It'll take us 55 minutes. You don't want to miss it. Let's head back to the Sunrise Daily Studio.